A single keycard swipe at 3:00 a.m. sealed her fate. Exhausted and desperate for sleep, Chloe stumbled into suite 412 instead of 414. By morning, she wasn't just waking up in a stranger's king-sized bed. She was staring down the barrel of Chicago's most ruthless underworld boss. The Palmer House, Hilton in downtown Chicago, was a beacon of historic luxury. But to Chloe Henderson, it was just a gilded cache of exhaustion. As a senior coordinator for the Opulent Winds of Change charity gala, she had spent the last 48 hours running on black coffee and adrenaline. When the final guest stumbled out of the grand ballroom at 2:30 a.m., Chloe's entire body felt like lead. Her company had comped her a room for the night, room 414. When Toby, the night manager, handed her the magnetic keycard, his eyes were as bloodshot as hers. Neither of them noticed the slight printing error on the small cardboard sleeve. Dragging her heels across the plush, patterned carpet of the 4th floor, Chloe barely glanced at the brass numbers. She swiped the card against the lock of room 412. The light flashed green. The heavy oak door clicked open. The suite was suffocatingly dark, smelling faintly of expensive sandalwood and sharp whiskey. Chloe didn't bother turning on the lights. She kicked off her heels, unzipped her black pencil skirt, and let it pool on the floor. Clad only in her silk slip, she crawled into the massive king-sized bed, pulled the heavy duvet over her head, and instantly lost consciousness. She didn't feel the sudden dip in the mattress an hour later. She didn't hear the hushed, urgent voices in the hallway, or the subtle click of a customized Glock 19 being set on the mahogany nightstand. When Chloe woke up, it wasn't to the sound of her alarm. It was the sensation of cold, unforgiving steel pressed firmly beneath her chin. Her eyes snapped open. The morning light filtering through the heavy drapes illuminated a nightmare. Straddling her waist, pinning her down with terrifying ease, was a man who looked like he had stepped out of a high-fashion magazine and into a war zone. He had sharp, aristocratic features, piercing grey eyes, and dark hair falling over a bruised brow. He wore a crisp, tailored white dress shirt, though the collar was unbuttoned and his tie was missing. "Don't scream," the man said. His voice was a low, raspy baritone that sent a shock-wave of terror straight down her spine. "If you make a sound, the cleaning staff will be scrubbing you out of this Egyptian cotton." Chloe couldn't speak. Her vocal cords were paralyzed. She gave a frantic, jerky nod. The man studied her face, his gaze calculating and cold. "Who sent you? Was it the Morettis? Tell me how you got past Dante." I don't know who Dante is," Chloe choked out, a tear escaping the corner of her eye. "I'm Chloe Henderson. I'm an event planner. I'm supposed to be in room 414. The man paused. He glanced over his shoulder. "Dante." The bathroom door swung open, and a towering man in a dark suit stepped out. He held Chloe's discarded keycard sleeve in his massive, scarred hand. "She's telling the truth, boss. Sleeve says 414. Card is coded for 412. Front desk made a mistake." The man holding the gun slowly lowered it, though he didn't move off her. He let out a harsh, cynical laugh. "A mistake. A civilian sleeps in my bed, and it's a clerical error." He finally stepped off the bed, holstering his weapon beneath his jacket. Chloe scrambled backward, pulling the duvet up to her chin, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. "Get dressed, Chloe Henderson," the man ordered, adjusting his cuffs. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I won't say anything. I don't even know who you are." Dante snorted from the corner of the room. You really don't read the papers, do you, sweetheart? The man shot Dante a silencing look before turning his piercing grey eyes back to Chloe. My name is Dominic Castile, and as much as I'd love to let you walk out that door, you've complicated my morning. Chloe's blood ran cold. Dominic Castile. She didn't read the Financial Times, but living in Chicago, everyone knew the Castile name. They were officially real estate moguls, owning half the property on the magnificent Mile. Unofficially, the whispers painted them as the modern-day Mafia, untouchable, ruthless, and absolutely lethal. Before Chloe could beg for her life, a sharp, rhythmic pounding echoed against the suite door. "Chicago Police Department," a booming voice announced. "Open up!" Dominic's jaw clenched. Dante moved toward his weapon, but Dominic held up a hand, stopping him. He looked at the door, then back to Chloe, who was trembling violently against the headboard. A dark, dangerous idea sparked in Dominic's eyes. "Dante, get in the adjoining room," Dominic ordered quietly. He then stepped toward the bed, grabbing Chloe's bare shoulders with a surprisingly gentle but firm grip. "Listen to me very carefully, Chloe. 2 floors down, Vincent Moretti was found with a bullet in his head at exactly 3:15 a.m. The police are here to arrest me for it." Chloe gasped. "Did you—" "It doesn't matter," Dominic cut her off, his face mere inches from hers. "What matters is that at 3:15 a.m. you were in this bed, which means I was in this bed with you." "No," Chloe panicked. "No, I can't lie to the police. I can't be involved in this." "You are involved," Dominic stated, his voice dropping to a terrifying whisper. "You are my alibi, Chloe. You are going to tell them that we spent the entire night together. You're going to tell them it was passionate, it was loud, and I never left your sight." "They'll never believe that." The pounding on the door grew louder. "Mr. Castile, open this door, or we will breach it." Dominic leaned in, his lips brushing against her ear. "They will if we make them believe it. Play along, and you walk out of here alive. Cross me, and a wrong room key will be the least of your problems." The heavy oak door swung open, revealing 3 plainclothes detectives standing in the hallway, badges in hand. Leading the pack was Detective Rayburn, a grizzled, cynical man who had made it his life's mission to put a Castile behind bars. "Dominic," Rayburn sneered, stepping into the suite without an invitation. "Rough night?" Dominic stood casually by the minibar, pouring a measure of sparkling water into a glass. He had unbuttoned his shirt 1 button further and purposefully ruffled his dark hair, looking the picture of a man interrupted from a leisurely morning. "Detective Rayburn," Dominic replied, his tone laced with polite arrogance. "To what do I owe the pleasure of a home invasion at 8 in the morning?" "Cut the crap, Castile!" Rayburn snapped, his eyes darting around the room until they landed on the bed. Chloe sat there, clutching the duvet to her chest, her heart threatening to beat its way out of her throat. She tried to look indignant rather than terrified, just as Dominic had instructed. "Who's this?" Rayburn demanded, marching toward the foot of the bed. A professional distraction? Dominic moved instantly, stepping between the detective and the bed. The casual demeanor vanished, replaced by a sudden, protective hostility that caught both Rayburn and Chloe off guard. "Watch your mouth, Rayburn," Dominic warned, his voice a lethal hum. "This is a private suite, and she is my private business. State your purpose or get out." Rayburn didn't back down. Vincent Moretti was shot dead in room 204 last night. Time of death is estimated between 300 and 3:30 a.m. We have witnesses who say they saw a man matching your description near the stairwell. Witnesses make mistakes, Dominic said smoothly. I haven't left this room since midnight. Is that right? Rayburn looked over Dominic's shoulder, locking eyes with Chloe. And I suppose the lady can corroborate that. Chloe swallowed hard. Her mind screamed at her to tell the truth, to run to the police, to explain the mix-up. But as she looked at Rayburn, she remembered the stories about the Chicago PD's corruption. She remembered Dominic's warning. If she talked, she was dead. She took a deep breath, forcing her voice to steady. He was here. Rayburn narrowed his eyes. Miss, if you are being coerced, you need to tell me now. Lying in a homicide investigation carries serious weight. I'm not lying, Chloe said, finding a strange well of courage born purely from survival instinct. She met Rayburn's gaze directly. Dom has been with me since I got here. We didn't sleep much. He certainly didn't have time to leave the room. Dominic turned slightly, looking at her with an expression that was halfway between genuine surprise and predatory approval. He walked over to the bed, sitting on the edge, and gently brushed a stray lock of hair behind her ear. His touch sent an involuntary shiver down her spine. See, Detective? Dominic murmured, keeping his eyes on Chloe. I was heavily occupied. Rayburn scowled, his face turning an angry shade of red. He knew they were lying, but without hard evidence, and with a witness explicitly providing an alibi, his hands were tied. This isn't over, Castile. We'll be pulling the security footage. We'll be doing a background check on your companion. If her story cracks even a fraction, you're both going down. Have a pleasant morning, Detective, Dominic replied, not bothering to look up. The detectives stormed out, slamming the heavy suite door behind them. The silence that followed was deafening. Chloe immediately scrambled out from under Dominic's touch, retreating to the furthest corner of the king-sized bed. I did it, she breathed heavily. I lied for you. Now let me go. Dominic stood up, pacing slowly towards the window, looking out over the Chicago skyline. Security footage will show you entering this room at 3:30 a.m., he stated quietly. It will show me entering at 1:00 a.m. Rayburn will check your background. He'll see you're an event planner for Winds of Change. He'll see you have a mountain of debt from your mother's treatments at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Chloe froze. How do you know about my mother? Dominic turned back to her. My men work fast, Chloe. While you were sleeping, we ran your prints from a glass you touched. I know exactly who you are. You have no right. I have every right when my life is on the line. Dominic's voice boomed, cracking like a whip across the room. He took a deep breath, reining in his temper. The Moretti family is going to demand a blood price for Vincent. If they think you're just some hooker I hired to cover my tracks, they will torture you to get the truth. Rayburn will lean on you until you break. So what are you saying? Chloe asked, dread pooling in her stomach. I'm saying a one-night stand isn't believable enough to protect us, Dominic explained, walking back to the bed. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He tossed it onto the mattress. It bounced once and landed in front of her. Chloe stared at it. What is that? Open it. With trembling fingers, Chloe popped the lid. Inside rested a diamond ring so large it looked heavy. It caught the morning light, throwing fractured rainbows across the dark bedsheets. Rayburn and the Morettis need to believe you have a vested interest in protecting me. They need to believe you are untouchable, Dominic stated, his eyes locking onto hers with a frightening intensity. You aren't just a mistake who stumbled into my room anymore, Chloe. As of today, you are my fiancée." "No," Chloe gasped, dropping the box. "I won't do it. I want my normal life back." "Your normal life is gone," Dominic said bluntly. "But if you play the part, if you move into my penthouse, attend the galas on my arm, and smile for the cameras, I will erase the $200,000 in medical debt you owe Northwestern Memorial. I will ensure your mother gets the best private care in the country." Chloe stared at him, her mind spinning. It was a deal with the devil, a contract signed in deception. "And if I refuse?" she asked quietly. Dominic stepped closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous, velvety whisper. "Then I open this door, and I let the wolves have you." Within 48 hours, Chloe Henderson's entire existence was erased and rewritten. Her modest walk-up apartment in Wicker Park was packed up by silent, efficient men in dark suits. She was relocated to the top floor of the St. Regis Chicago, a sprawling, glass-walled penthouse that overlooked the churning, steel-gray waters of Lake Michigan. True to his word, Dominic Castile moved with terrifying efficiency. The crippling debt hanging over Chloe's head vanished overnight. Her mother was quietly transferred to the VIP oncology wing at Rush University Medical Center, under the care of the top specialists in the Midwest. When Chloe visited her, the nurses treated her like royalty, whispering about the massive anonymous donation that had funded the ward's new research wing. Chloe had sold her soul, but her mother was safe. Now she just had to survive the devil she made the deal with. Living with Dominic was a study in contradictions. He was a phantom during the day, locked in his mahogany-paneled study, running his real estate empire, barking orders over encrypted phone lines. But in the evenings, the dangerous mob boss softened into a surprisingly attentive companion. He remembered her coffee order, black with 1 sugar. He ordered her favorite Thai takeout from a small, obscure place on Belmont Avenue. He never touched her without permission, maintaining a stoic, respectful distance that confused her racing heart. But the illusion of safety shattered on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Chloe was escorted by Dante to a high-end boutique on Oak Street to be fitted for the upcoming engagement gala. While Dante stood guard outside the dressing room, a man slipped through the employee entrance. Chloe was adjusting the neckline of a crimson silk gown when the velvet curtain was roughly shoved aside. A man with slicked-back dark hair and a jagged scar across his jaw stepped into the cramped space. He smelled of cheap cologne and copper. "So this is the woman who was keeping Castile so busy while my brother bled out," the man hissed, pulling a switchblade from his coat. Chloe froze, her breath hitching in her throat. "Who are you?" "Lorenzo Moretti," he spat, pressing the flat of the cold blade against her cheek. "Vincent was my blood. Dominic thinks he can hide behind a pretty face and a fake alibi. The Chicago PD might be scared of him, but the Moretti family isn't. You tell your fake fiancé that this war is just starting. And when we take him down, we're coming for you too." Before Chloe could scream, a massive hand clamped onto Lorenzo's shoulder, violently yanking him backward. Dante threw the Moretti heir through the boutique's glass display case, shattering it into 1,000 glittering pieces. "Get in the car, Miss Henderson!" Dante roared, drawing his weapon as the boutique staff began to scream. When Chloe arrived back at the St. Regis, she was shaking uncontrollably. Dominic was waiting in the foyer, his face a mask of lethal fury. He didn't say a word to Dante. He just dismissed him with a nod and pulled Chloe into his arms. It was the first time they had truly embraced. Dominic's chest was hard and warm, his heartbeat steady against her cheek. He smelled of sandalwood and impending violence. "He touched you," Dominic growled, his hands gently framing her face as he inspected the faint red mark the blade had left on her cheek. Lorenzo Moretti is a dead man walking. Dominic, stop, Chloe pleaded, her hands gripping his crisp dress shirt. No more killing. Please. He thinks you murdered his brother. Did you? Dominic looked down into her terrified eyes. The hardened Mafia boss stripped away, leaving only a profoundly tired man. No, Chloe. I didn't. Vincent Moretti was a fool, but he was a profitable ally. Someone assassinated in that hotel to frame me. Someone wants the Castiles and the Morettis to slaughter each other, so they can pick up the pieces of the Chicago underworld. Who? She whispered. I don't know yet, Dominic admitted, his thumb brushing away a stray tear on her cheek. But I will find out, and until I do, I am not letting you out of my sight. You aren't just an alibi anymore, Chloe. You're mine to protect. The words hung in the air, thick with a possessive heat that made Chloe's pulse race for an entirely different reason. The line between their fake engagement and a terrifyingly real bond had just been obliterated. The engagement gala was held at the Field Museum of Natural History. It was a calculated move by Dominic. The sprawling, echoing halls of the museum, with its towering dinosaur skeletons and priceless artifacts, provided a neutral ground for Chicago's elite and its underworld to mingle under the watchful eyes of private security and the city's press. Chloe descended the grand marble staircase on Dominic's arm, wearing the crimson gown from the boutique. The massive diamond engagement ring flashed under the chandeliers, a heavy anchor binding her to the most dangerous man in the room. Flashbulbs popped. Reporters shouted questions. Detective Rayburn lurked by the ancient Egyptian exhibit, his arms crossed, watching their every move with predatory patience. Smile, sweetheart, Dominic murmured against her ear, his hand resting warmly on the small of her back. We just have to make it through the toast. Among the crowd was Donovan Pierce, Dominic's most trusted underboss. Donovan was a smooth-talking, impeccably dressed man who handled the Castile family's legitimate offshore accounts. He approached them with 2 glasses of champagne, offering a wide, charming smile. To the happy couple, Donovan said, handing Chloe a glass. Dominic, the mayor is asking for you near the VIP lounge. Wants to discuss the Navy Pier zoning permits. Dominic frowned, clearly hesitant to leave Chloe's side. Dante is doing a perimeter check. Donovan, stay with her. Do not let her out of your sight. With my life, boss, Donovan promised. As soon as Dominic disappeared into the crowd, Donovan's charming smile melted into a cold, hard line. He leaned close to Chloe. We need to move. Rayburn's men just found a security floor near the south entrance. Dominic wants you in the holding room until it's cleared. Panic spiked in Chloe's chest, but she nodded, trusting Dominic's second-in-command. Donovan guided her away from the glittering party, down a dark, echoing corridor that led toward the museum's restricted archival storage. The music faded into a muffled thud behind them. This isn't the holding room, Chloe said, stopping abruptly as they entered a dimly lit gallery filled with unboxed taxidermy and wooden crates. No, it isn't, Donovan agreed. He turned to face her, drawing a silenced pistol from his tuxedo jacket. Chloe stumbled backward, her heel catching on the hem of her dress. Donovan? What are you doing? Cleaning up a mess, Donovan sneered. Vincent Moretti was supposed to be the spark that burned Dominic's empire to the ground. I paid the hotel manager to scramble the room keys that night. Dominic was supposed to be caught red-handed by Rayburn. But you ruined it. You gave him an ironclad alibi. The truth hit Chloe like a physical blow. It was you. You killed Vincent. You're trying to take over the family. Dominic is weak. He cares too much about building real estate and going legitimate, Donovan spat, raising the gun and aiming it squarely at Chloe's chest. When they find your body down here, Dominic will go insane. He'll declare all-out war on the Morettis, thinking Lorenzo did this. They'll destroy each other, and I'll take the throne. You really talk too much, Donovan. The voice echoed from the shadows like the toll of a death knell. Donovan spun around, but he wasn't fast enough. Dominic stepped out from behind a towering crate, his own weapon drawn and leveled. His eyes were completely devoid of humanity. They were the eyes of the ruthless killer the city feared. "Dominic," Donovan stammered, his gun wavering. You sent me to the mayor, but the mayor is in Washington this weekend," Dominic said, his voice terrifyingly calm as he stepped into the dim light. "You've been sloppy, Donovan. And now, you're dead." Donovan panicked. He swung his gun back toward Chloe, intending to take her down with him. But Chloe wasn't the terrified girl from the Palmer House Hotel anymore. Acting on pure instinct, she hurled her full champagne glass directly at Donovan's face. The crystal shattered against his forehead, blinding him with alcohol and shards just as he pulled the trigger. The silenced shot went wide, shattering a display case behind her. A split second later, Dominic fired twice. Donovan crumpled to the marble floor, a blossoming red stain spreading across his white tuxedo shirt. He didn't move again. The silence that followed was suffocating, broken only by the sound of Chloe's ragged breathing. Dominic dropped his weapon and closed the distance between them in 3 massive strides. He pulled her roughly into his chest, burying his face in her hair. His hands were shaking. The untouchable Mafia king was trembling. "Are you hurt?" he demanded gruffly, his hands running frantically over her arms and back, checking for blood. "Chloe, did he hit you?" "I'm okay," she sobbed, burying her face against his neck, clinging to his lapels. "I'm okay, Dom. I'm okay." 10 minutes later, Detective Rayburn burst into the storage room with 6 armed officers. He took one look at Donovan's body, then at the burner phone Dante pulled from the dead man's pocket. A phone filled with texts connecting Donovan directly to Vincent Moretti's assassination. Rayburn holstered his weapon, letting out a heavy sigh of defeat. "Looks like you just took out the trash, Castile. Self-defense. The Moretti family is going to owe you an apology." Dominic didn't look at the detective. He kept his arm securely wrapped around Chloe's waist. "Just get this cleaned up, Rayburn." Hours later, back in the quiet sanctuary of the St. Regis penthouse, the adrenaline finally faded, leaving a heavy, emotional exhaustion in its wake. Chloe stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out over the glittering city lights. Dominic walked up behind her. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was the contract they had drawn up, the agreement that bought her mother's life in exchange for her freedom. Slowly, deliberately, Dominic tore the paper in half and then in half again, dropping the pieces into a crystal ashtray on the side table. Chloe turned around, her heart skipping a beat. "What are you doing?" "The threat is gone," Dominic said softly, his piercing grey eyes searching hers. "Donovan is dead. The Morettis know the truth. You don't have to be my alibi anymore, Chloe. Your mother's medical bills are paid in full. You're free. You can pack your things and walk out that door right now, and I swear to you, no one in this city will ever bother you again." Chloe looked at the torn pieces of the contract, and then up at the dangerous, beautiful man standing before her. She thought about her quiet, lonely life before the hotel mix-up. She thought about the way his heart hammered against hers in the museum, the way he looked at her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. She took a step toward him, reaching out to gently rest her palm against his cheek. "What if I don't want to leave?" she whispered. Dominic's breath hitched. For a moment, the fearsome boss of the Chicago underworld looked entirely vulnerable. Then he wrapped his arms around her waist, pulling her flush against his chest, his lips capturing hers in a kiss that tasted like whiskey, danger, and a promise of forever. She had slept in his bed by mistake. But staying there was the best choice she ever made. Did you expect that explosive twist at the museum? Chloe's accidental run-in with a Mafia boss turned into a fight for survival. And ultimately, a dangerous, true love. If you loved this intense story of deception, loyalty, and romance, please hit that like button. Share this video with your friends who love a thrilling Mafia romance, and make sure to subscribe to our channel for more heart-pounding stories. Let us know below. Would you have stayed with Dominic?